Good evening. Welcome everyone on this Wednesday, May the 17th, to the Richmond Planning and Zoning Commission. Clerk, you call the roll, please.
Mr. Shu?
Yes.
Commissioner Miles?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Perkins?
Here.
Commissioner Estelle?
Yes. Next is the approval of April the 19th, 2023 meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at those?
I'll make
Make a motion,
a
yeah.
motion. Or you go ahead.
I make a motion that we approve the, you said April 19th, 2023 minutes?
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Shu?
Yes.
Commissioner Miles? Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Estelle?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, the final plan approval for Magnolia Point, Phase 7B. Mr. Spencer.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This evening, we're bringing Magnolia Point Phase 7B for final plat approval. A couple months ago, you all saw Phase 7A. This just tacks on to the end of that. To my knowledge, we have everything the city has asked for completed. We don't have any outstanding items. So I'm open to any questions or discussion.
How close are we getting to when we need the bridge?
Yeah, the bridge is being designed in the phase we're working on right now.
All right,
Yes.
great.
This phase basically takes us to the very top of the hill. So from right here, we go down the hill to the creek and across the bridge.
Really.
Is this to your left when you turn, go back, or you just go straight when you get back here in the back?
Yes, if you've been back in the area where there's houses, you turn left across the pond.
Yeah.
And this is all the new streets across the pond.
Okay. Philip, you see anything?
The only couple of things I have, knock on this fake wood, but phases 7A and B, overall, things have went very smooth. Developers doing a good job overall, and with 7B, when they realized that they weren't ready for the last meeting, voluntarily pulled it and said they'd be ready for this meeting, and it all went smooth and worked out. And I just want you to know I appreciate that, honestly, I do. So,
Thank you, guys.
doing a good job, and I hope we keep moving forward.
Anyone else? Need a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the final plat approval for Magnolia Point Phase 7B.
Second.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Switching it up. Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Miles?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Shu?
Yes.
Commissioner Estelle?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, next on the agenda is the preliminary plot for approval for Arbor Woods Phase 4. Mr. Wheatley?
Thank you very much. This is Arbor Woods. This is every bit of the land that's out there. The first two phases have already been approved and final platted. We're basically the western half of what you see on the drawing there is what we're here to get the preliminary on tonight. We kind of call it Phase 3 and 4, just so we can put it on other plats. It'd be bigger and easier to read. So it's approximately 100 lots. If there's any questions, we'd be glad to answer them for you.
So do y'all know which part we're talking about? Exactly which part?
Yeah.
So-
He's showing it highlighted.
Yeah, right now the road ends right here,
Correct.
and we're just doing this, gonna do this part right here now.
So,
This phase here, we stubbed out straight this way, and we're also, we stubbed going out all the way to the property line here. Well, this goes to that far.
So just so we're on the same page, everything to the right of that line or where the road stopped, that is under construction and already finalized and being built. Everything to the left, that's the new section, and we had a previous preliminary plat approved for this whole development, which included this section as well, but they decided to revise that, so we had to do an amended plat so that you'd be aware of the changes.
Does anyone else got questions on this? If not, can you get a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve preliminary plat approval for Arbor Woods Phase 4.
I second.
Okay, Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Shu,
Yes.
Commissioner Sell.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next will be the permit approval for Park View Heights. I skipped one on there.
No, it's okay. This one's right at the intersection of Goggins Lane and Tates Creek. We got the zone change on it several months ago. The property we're doing tonight is the R1C property. The B3 property to the east, there'll be development plans and stuff for it later on. But at this time, we're just doing the R1C. We have approximately 250 lots. We're trying to get a KU easement width lowered, so we don't have a definite number of lots. It could be plus or minus 5 or 6 due to the width of the KU easement. We've met with the city and discussed, the connection to the road and everything, and connection to the city park. Our entrance to the east matches up straight across from the city park, so we've worked with the highway department to make sure we have our entrances in the right spot. And if you've got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them for you.
Are there sidewalks?
Yeah, we'll have sidewalks throughout the whole development.
No, I mean in Goggins.
Not on Goggins. We're trying to keep Goggins, we're trying to keep as much off of Goggins as we possibly can.
Yeah, but you can't get to the park.
Oh, well, they have the interior streets of the subdivision to get, come through to get to the park there.
Dwayne?
None of the houses will front on Goggins. They'll all front on the road that runs parallel to Goggins. So they'll be able to just walk down the sidewalk and come across.
Would it be some on Tates Creek in front?
No, with the state and everything, and they didn't want us to have sidewalks there. They're really scared of pedestrians crossing the road to go to the park. Because, we kind of was interested in that, but the the state is a little scared for people to walk across that road without a traffic signal or anything right there. And of course, we can't hardly get a traffic signal from the state.
Is there,
Hawkins and where's
Philip, you might
Tates
have,
Creek?
Dwayne, I guess they would consider a setback on that
And this is Tate's Creek.
for the state, but
So they should build
would that be in consideration
that, so then that way.
What's that now?
for the state, for the setback
So
on,
it'll be-
on that road there for sidewalks?
Yeah, but I mean,
How you gonna get over there? But
my speaker seems awful loud tonight.
can't even walk on the sidewalk.
If I'm understanding you correctly, I don't think a setback is an issue with the sidewalk on Tates Creek, if that's what you're asking about as far as state right of way or whatever.
Or the right of way is really what I guess what I,
Yeah, and I guess the concern there is the mid-block crossing, down here versus if they cross at the intersection, but unless Mr. Wheatley knows something I don't know or talk to state or something, I'm not sure there's anything saying you can't put sidewalk down there.
Is there eventually going to be a light at that Goggins Tate's Creek? Would that help
Yeah, there's-
facilitate?
Well, there's existing light at the four-way intersection.
Flashing light.
Well,
there's a
to the
stoplight.
west side there is a existing traffic signal there.
traffic
It's a
signal
four-way.
there.
But our two entrances, we just have turn lanes for ours.
So you're talking about a four-way stop, and you're not talking about any sidewalks. And you're talking about a park that's gonna draw a lot of people. You're talking about a city that's getting bigger. You're talking about very busy intersections. I think, sidewalks to me seem like a good idea.
The entrance is off Tate's Creek, okay, down there on the bottom, right
Yes,
there.
sir.
Are they gonna be parallel to what goes into the park, or do you know?
Yeah, the one that you see to the right is directly across from their entrance. So people could walk through our sidewalks within our subdivision and just walk across the road there to that intersection and walk right
But
into
the
the
state
park.
doesn't, the state's not encouraging that. They don't want a traffic signal there, is what it boils down to. That's what you're saying.
Well, they don't want one anywhere.
No,
That's
no,
like, I'm,
because
that's
you're
my
going
opinion.
from Keeneland to Goggins, and they want people to cross the road at the red light up at Goggins.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Or seem to be correct? They
I'm not
don't,
really sure
they
about
don't
that.
want people walking from your subdivision over to the park. They would rather
They would
them
rather you
drive.
drove.
Yeah.
They would rather them
Yes.
drive.
Yes.
And that's what you're gonna have to encourage if you don't have sidewalks. To me, I've been watching y'all move dirt out there, okay? My mother lives in Deacon Hills, and I come out Goggins Lane, come out Tate's Creek all the time to avoid all the traffic lights on, the bypass. So I've been watching y'all do that. I mean, I'm amazed at people moving dirt, okay? But, so what you're saying is the bottom one there is gonna come right across, and that's gonna be one of the entrances into the park off Tate's Creek. But the park's gotta be way back because of the way the road is out there, there's a big hill. I mean, the way we're lazy in our society, people ain't gonna walk across the street, walk up that hill to the park, they're gonna drive their car across the street. You
Well,
know,
I agree with you, but if you have the sidewalk there, then it encourages people. You got, the first part of Tate's Creek, you got sidewalk, encourage people to walk, et cetera, like that, as we get more and more subdivisions up through there.
well,
Because sooner or later, it's gonna be mass transportation here, sooner or later, you're gonna have to have some place to stand, to step in the street, you're gonna have to have some sidewalks.
I would prefer that they pull into the park. If you have mass transportation, I would prefer that they would pull into the park to let them off at the park, not at the bottom of the hill on Tate's Creek.
Oh, I agree, but there'll be transportation all up and down there sooner or later. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just looking to the future that would be a good idea to go ahead and put sidewalks, because if they don't put it, then the city's gonna get stuck with it. I personally think we should have had sidewalks all up and down the bypass too.
Well, and the reality though is what he's saying is none of the houses, the back of the lot, I understand what you're saying. I'm gonna say, do you want to encourage people to walk on Tate's Creek? That's what I'm saying. Do you really want to encourage people to walk on Tate's Creek Road?
Well, if sidewalks, yeah.
The sidewalks are there.
If the sidewalks are there, who's gonna walk on those streets? If I'm living in that subdivision, I'm gonna walk around the subdivision inside the subdivision. You're gonna have
You're correct,
sidewalks
yes.
inside the subdivision, aren't you?
Yes, and we also have a hiking trail that comes right down. You can see those little hatch squiggly marks. We also have hiking trails that go through our whole subdivision and come out right there at our entrance or across from the park.
But then there's not a crosswalk or any kind of flasher
No.
there to protect people if they do want to cross over.
But what I'm saying, you're trying to discourage people to walk on Tate's Creek Avenue because it's gonna get
Big.
busier and busier, so you don't want people walking on Tate's Creek.
But they probably will in the future because of them,
Bicycles,
yeah, they
they'll ride
probably will.
bikes.
Well, it's like,
And if you don't have some kind of sidewalks there, then they can't. Like, for instance, you were talking about Deacon Hills, they should have sidewalks up and down there so they can walk, et cetera.
of course, Goggins Lane's got sidewalks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's nice.
so all you're doing is connecting with them.
We also, along the roads, will have a 4-foot shoulder as well, that will be good for bicycles or
Yeah.
whatever,
I mean, if you want bicycle, do you want bicycles riding on, I don't prefer bicycles riding on sidewalks. I'd rather have a bicycle lane,
So you want to add that to the sidewalk?
not to the sidewalk, on the street. If you go to any place that has bicycle lanes, they're not on the sidewalks, they're on part of the street.
I know.
Okay? And I'm just saying, I don't want to have sidewalks, I'm entitled to my opinion, I don't want to have sidewalks on Tates Creek Road, because I don't want to encourage people to walk on Tates Creek Road.
Well, let me ask you this, is Tates Creek eventually gonna have, a road, exit onto the interstate? Is that in our future? Because if you're gonna start building a bunch of subdivisions down Tates Creek, they're all gonna be going through Keeneland, that's a disaster. And
Well,
they-
at some point in time, they're going to have to figure out something to do to Goggins Lane.
well, that,
Yeah, I mean,
that's Barnes Mill, and that's,
and I
Can't
agree
get
Goggins Lane, or Keeneland is horrible.
Right.
I agree with you there, but what I'm saying, I don't want to encourage people to walk on Tates Creek Avenue.
well, I agree with you if they're gonna put an exit on, from Tates Creek onto the bypass, onto the interstate. Because then you're gonna have heavy traffic, and then you're gonna have a lot more subdivisions going down there too. So you're probably right, we don't
Okay, I
need-
see what you're saying, down there by Arlington.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Uh-huh. I don't know if that's proposed in our future, exit off of Tates Creek onto the
I
interstate.
doubt it, sir. You'd have to check with state transportation, but I guarantee you I would guesstimate that's not in their plan. I don't know. Because
Keeneland's gonna be, that's
you
gonna get tough in the
destroy part of the
future.
golf course on one side.
Can't do that.
Well, my question was like, they're in front of the development there, sidewalks coming down, down in front of it, and, now,
We also got to look, we got a 55 mile an hour speed limit down Tates Creek Road too. It's really not safe for, well, I don't think safe for sidewalks, but it's up to you all in the end. But, right now, the speed limit down through there is 55, and if we can walk in the subdivision, I think we're better off to walk within the subdivision. But it's up to you all on that, I guess.
Well, my only problem is if you've got the subdivision and you have a park right across the street from it, don't you think people will cross to go onto into the park? Don't we need some sort of protection for them to get into the park?
Oh, yeah. It comes,
Well,
yeah.
it states,
It runs to
you
Tates
met
Creek
with them
from
too, Philip.
Richmond.
They're really discouraging us crossing there,
There should be.
even though it's right across the road from it.
It's just,
I think the way to look at it,
if you
for this purpose,
let's say, if you come down Tates Creek, head,
technically, you're, during the plan, we didn't,
it's like right about.
we did discuss it, so it was discussed. Technically, you do the development, you'd be required to put the sidewalk down through there. So, and just like what we do with other developments, same thing. So for example, Gray Oaks that fronts on Tates Creek has sidewalk. The new development that's there, they would be required to put sidewalk down along through there. The idea is, I guess, as time goes and it's developed, sidewalk is connected, and you have sidewalks, so you don't end up with missing patches and things like we have in front of Richmond Center, for example. And I know it costs money, and I know if that's probably the issue more than anything. The idea would be, for example, you would live here, and if you decide to walk to the park, and people, believe it or not, they do walk, and as things develop, more people will walk, that you will come down and you won't mid-block cross is what that would be called. You won't do the mid-block cross in the middle of the road, and that's why you wouldn't want a crosswalk or anything there, because it's not a controlled intersection. So they would walk down to the controlled intersection where the traffic light's at, and they would cross and go over. Just like if I lived in Deacon Hills or whatever it is, and I come out on Goggins and I wanted to walk up here one day to whatever's up there, I don't know, or first thing comes to my mind where I used to do school traffic safety, I will live here, I will walk out of this neighborhood, and I'll be able to walk eventually one day down to that school, I guess, in theory. And there's grants out there for school safety and sidewalks and things. So I think if we do it tonight, which is, I think, fine either way, and it may not be a big impact for many years. But it technically would be required to have it, so if you approve the plan tonight without it, that would essentially be granting a waiver of the sidewalk requirement. I guess would be the best way to look at it. And to support the developer and the engineers, I do think it makes sense to have sidewalk inside the development. But I also, at the same time, you're literally, they'll probably get mad at me over this, but it's literally called Park View, and you're not gonna be able to walk to the park. I mean, and that's, walkability is something we have in the comprehensive plan. Bicycle lanes, we have in the comprehensive plan. Maybe if you, just because they have to widen the road, right?
Yes.
So maybe an option would be that this may not be a good option, but maybe if there's a bike, if you widen it and there's a bike lane there, that would suffice as I don't know, maybe that could be kind of a
Walking
dual
path.
mode. And it would be blacktop and not concrete, and maybe it would be there and be wide enough and be lined or something. I'm just stretching this, but I think maybe that,
Being honest with you, is me, that would scare me. Can I ask about something else?
you can say, yeah, whatever you'd like to say, yeah.
Let me ask you this, what about, and we kind of talked about this once before, instead of coming all the way down behind those lots, is coming, kind of show you, it'd probably be easier. If we had to do something, kind of suggest this, we talked about once about maybe coming right down through here and coming, so that way they could walk, and then they could come down to the intersection just right here. That way, we're not running it all the way down, because it's 55 mile an hour, that's a dangerous place right there. It's,
Yeah, that's good. Like that.
you know, that would kind of be my other suggestion, instead of running it all the way back down beside that road, is bringing it down off that corner, and you could still have access. And actually, if these people come down up here, they're not gonna walk all the way down through there, I can just tell you that, we know that, it happens, in the city of Richmond. They're gonna cut straight across.
All due respect, people walk.
Yeah.
They do walk, believe it or not. I don't walk, you can probably tell that, all right? But people do walk, and it's legitimate. I lived in Louisville 5 years, just came from Louisville. There will one day be a bus stop there, all right? Now, if you want to, and we did talk about what he's talking about, if we want to do something like that, so be it. But this is not just, the sidewalk down here is not, it's not just to serve the neighborhood. That's why it's part of the developments when you develop anywhere. But if we do something like that, they would walk up. I guess you could come from the neighborhood down to the intersection, and then if one day, I don't know, I think the options are you either have a sidewalk or you do something with the widened road and you line it and put something there.
I think what he was, as long as you had a path or something there to walk on, I think that would be sufficient enough, rather than people walking on the edge of, just out there walking on the edge of the road or curb. I think as long as they had some type of pathway or something like a bike path, or, the size of that, I think that would be sufficient enough for right now for them.
Yeah, you've got to have something like that,
Yeah.
because where I grew up, we had a sidewalk, and there were cars that went 55 miles an hour right by us. But if I didn't, and I walked to school, if I didn't have that sidewalk or some kind of path, I would be sitting on the corner of the road trying to walk in dirt and on the side of the road. And lots of times parents work, and now we're getting schools closer, so you're probably going to have less buses. You're going to have more kids walking to school, which happens, et cetera. So I'm just trying to think of some way to make it a little safer for them.
Well, I think using the bike lane idea as a dual purpose is probably one of the most dangerous ones. I mean, I really do, just because there is no really kind of a buffer to it, so you're literally walking on the street. At
That's
least
what I
with-
wanna get
yeah,
at.
Exactly, and at least with a sidewalk, there's almost always a curb, for the street to the curb, and there's maybe a little bit of grass or whatever, and then you have the sidewalk, so that's more of a dedicated space. My thought always was, is if you continued it on back this way, it was just there for future use. Whatever's developed down here can tie into that. So they are already being in place, but yet there again, it would be, I think it's a good idea, you know, if you want to try to funnel everybody down one way, that would work. But,
Imagine Man of War in Lexington without sidewalks.
yeah, yeah.
Now, that's a danger. And that's probably what it's gonna be like in
Yeah.
20, 30 years from now.
So if you take out that second access and put that at the corner where the light's going to be, that would,
We have to keep our entrances where they are, according to the state.
It's too close to the intersection.
Yeah, we can put a sidewalk down between those two lots there and bring it down to that intersection. If we do run it, you know, at the back, you know, there's gonna be a sidewalk in the front of the yard, and then 120 feet behind it, we're gonna have another sidewalk behind it. So they have kind of a double sidewalk going on there, but
We've got someone back here.
I live on Goggins, right where the other entrance is gonna come. Why doesn't the sidewalk go on the park side and not on their development side, along where the park's gonna go from Goggins down Tate's Creek? Why don't you put the sidewalk there and a bike path over there?
Well, the idea is getting across.
People are gonna come down to where the light is at Tate's and Goggins. We have a sidewalk right in front of our house, that's where they walk to. So if they crossed at Goggins and Tate's Creek into the park right there, and they have the sidewalk come in, then it doesn't mess up their development. It solves the park, because the park supposedly is going to have paths down and along. So if you put sidewalks on the park side, which would be what, the south side of Tate's Creek, then you're in the park, edge of the park, it takes you off of 55 mile an hour, which nobody does anyway, road, and everybody's safe, and you have a bike path too. Just a suggestion to the listeners.
That's a good suggestion.
She's pushing up Goggins Lane.
That's a good suggestion.
And that's, Goggins Lane's a little slower, even though they don't run the speed limit there. It's a little slower. But that's what I think she's saying, is if we put them in the light,
Well, yeah.
go that way.
Yeah, but our biggest thing, we're trying to get from your place across to that point,
Yes, yeah.
whether it goes up Goggins or goes up Tate's Creek. The point right now is to get to that corner, I think, is the main thing. It's like you say, and your idea is a good idea, you know, go up a slower way versus, you know, heading back toward town at 55 mile an hour.
Talking going down Tate's Creek from Goggins. That's where the new park's gonna be.
Right.
That side where the new park is, the bottom there where the creek runs along. I would think that whoever gets that could plan, put a pathway right down there, and then you don't have to worry about anybody from the two housing tracts that are Hidden Hills and everybody that walks down along Goggins now, just go across, maybe into the park. Then you don't have to worry about people on your side, because like you said, you got a path down there anyway. It's because that's where the light is. The light is at Tate's Creek and Goggins. And there's not gonna be a light down by the park entrance.
No.
If you figure out a way for them to get from your development down to the corner of Tate's Creek and Goggins, where they can cross now because there's a light and it's safe. And then they're in the park, they're walking,
That's kind of what we're looking at.
Philip, what do you think?
Well, I may get in a little trouble.
That's not Dave.
Technically, the park should have one on their side, and there should be one on the other side. There would be one on both sides, just like Goggins, if it was two neighborhoods, two subdivisions going in, by ordinance, there's supposed to be sidewalk on both sides.
Goggins only has it on one side.
So, and just another thing, thinking out loud, there's a sewer plant here, and there's a B3 lot that fronts on Tate's Creek. So, if whatever business goes in there, assuming it can be all kinds of different things, but B3s are highway commercial. So, there would be no walkability to that. Plus, if the sidewalk's just on this side, you come down the sewer plant with no sidewalk, and then you cross over, I guess, with the rest of whatever's developed. But I mean,
Sounds to me we just need to stick with our comprehensive plan, not give a waiver. I mean, that's why we had the comprehensive plan.
True.
This, did the preliminary, did it call for sidewalks?
Well, this is the preliminary here.
Huh?
This is the preliminary on this one.
So it's,
Yeah, so I guess we're going to decide tonight whether we got sidewalks or not.
Comprehensive.
I'm just
both
thinking
sides.
for
Comprehensive plan means sidewalks on both
people
sides.
walking down through there, you know, regardless if they live in the subdivision or not, that's,
You know, if you go back toward town, you know, we got the factory and then you got Keeneland and you got the interstate. And there's no sidewalks on any of those.
Because I see them all the time, even from mile walking.
Yeah.
Now imagine.
We actually, at the beginning, asked about
Sidewalks.
We actually asked about that. And that was one of the reasons why the state said they didn't want that, and the sidewalk being right against the curb. We was asking about doing the Goggins Lane deal, putting a turn lane in the center, because we didn't have to have a right turn lane. It was just a left turn lane. So we said, well, what about this, you know? The park's going in over here, we're doing this subdivision here. What about us doing that? Putting the curb in, putting the sidewalks behind it. Well, their thing was, they didn't like the sidewalk being right behind the curb because of it being a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. If someone, you know, and they really just kind of pushed us away from that. As far as, you know, because Goggins Lane is a, I think it's a city street now. I think you all took it over from the county. Yeah. I think so. But we actually, at the beginning, we asked them about doing that because when you come out of the city of Richmond, it's like that. To me, it would have been a cleaner way to do it. Because when you come out of Richmond, as soon as you come out of Richmond, you get right all the way down to Gray Oaks. I mean, looks good. I mean,
Sidewalk, yeah.
It's better looking, but, you know, they didn't want that. I really don't know why, but they said, no, it's just, you know, you come out there, you're 55 miles an hour, and, you know, we don't want sidewalks right up against the roadway.
Well, you know, oh,
They have sidewalks everywhere with people going 55 miles an hour. I mean, many places.
sure. And you know what I think? In a few years, that's going to go down to 45 because you've got.
Yeah, and that's what, we actually asked them about that, because actually, when you come out of Richmond, it's actually wrong, it's only supposed to go up 10 miles per hour, because as soon as you get down to the end of, past Gray Oaks, it's 35, it
Yeah.
jumps to 55 before it even gets to the school. And we even told them that, we said,
Yeah.
listen, it jumps from 55
From
as quick
30,
as-
yeah.
before you even get to the school. And they're really not supposed to do that, they were supposed to look at doing a traffic survey. on
That's
that.
good information.
Yeah.
any more?
no, so as it's, before you deny it, there's no sidewalk down there. So if you approve the existing plan, there's no sidewalk. So if you make a motion, and you are good with this one, you don't have to mention it. If you want sidewalk, you need to mention it. In the motion, I think we just do it that way, then they can amend it, and we can still move forward.
What about the idea of, their idea to make the little pathway that's definitely not on the plat? Do they have to bring that back, or do we have, how do you make that stick? I guess I'm trying to say.
If that was the motion, you just put that in the motion, and then we can move forward. If they agree to that, it'd be fine.
But you have a certain bicycle path, I know a certain dimensions, et cetera. So you,
If you wanted it wider out on the road, yeah, you probably just need to.
so that's why I think it needs to go back to you if you're going to do that. And then you have to discriminate about what size you want. It gets into more than just putting a bike path.
Yeah, plus, yeah, is it going to be a path, or is it going to be a wide sidewalk? Or
maybe try,
effort to make it a little bit easier to think about it. This property was annexed in, okay? So as we grow as a city, and what the requirements are is that you would provide that sidewalk. As we grow, do we want to provide sidewalks as we grow or not? The reason why you don't have them in other places is because of what we're talking about tonight. They weren't required or put in. So my point is, do you want to provide them a sidewalk to walk on, or do you want them walking in the grass and on the side of the street? Because there may not be 5,000 walkers, but there'll be some walkers at some point. As you go on down, and as you grow up, say we do something with Goggins, and you grow that way, and then we go out 4 Mile, and we grow that way, and do other, are we going to put sidewalks in or not?
Well,
That's kind of my, so just look at it that way. If we want to provide the sidewalk for people to walk on, or do we want a bike path down there that's wide enough they can walk on? Now, that would be something that have to be approved by the state, because that's a state road, as far as the width and what they do and that kind of thing. I guess that's really the question. Do you want to?
well, I don't think we need to, jump over one to another. I think we need to keep it consistent, whatever we do with it. But I think something is needed, though, regardless if it's a path like that or a sidewalk.
Of course, this one's a bit unique in the fact that from this point toward Richmond, what you have there, a lot of it's industry and whatnot. This may be a sidewalk to nowhere.
Right now,
Right now, I understand, yeah.
I mean, they're all sidewalks to nowhere to just develop, but you've got to stop someplace and put them in. And sometimes we've given waivers, and I didn't really care for that sometimes. I don't think we should give waivers from the comprehensive plan. I don't think that's a good idea. That's me. Do you want me to have a motion?
Well, that's what I was doing, see what he says.
We'd have to just get state approval to put it in there on the, we probably put it back in once. Easiest place to do it.
I will make a motion for sidewalks.
Me too.
What you say, Brian?
We were just talking about if we had to do sidewalks, where we'd be putting them at. I think we'd rather do, if it was okay with you all, I think we'd rather do the one connection there at the intersection where traffic people need to go to cross.
That's your safe point.
Yeah, that's the safest point, but it's of course, it's up to you all. But we'd like to get it approved tonight, whatever conditions that you all require, we would be willing, I believe, to get those made and get the corrections to Mr. Williams and get things rolling.
And that connection.
Well, is there any more discussion on it?
I only had one more question. As I remember, weren't there going to be storage units
Oh, I don't know.
involved in this, in that little area, on the little triangular area? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
on the B3,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Where's the connector to that? How are you going to connect?
You can see that road on down.
Right there.
All right, now I see it.
This is where it's
Okay,
gonna be.
okay, now I didn't quite make it out on the
It's,
plat.
it's on down toward the bottom there.
Yes.
You don't have,
Right
It's
there,
gonna make a
right there at that
connection right to
intersection.
the
Yep.
subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah.
you want to skip?
So you're not, real quick, you're not doing that section right now anyway,
No,
right?
No, I was just on a side, I really couldn't understand, boy, they had it laid out there, but I thought I remembered that there was going to be some there.
Yeah, we'll
And
come
and
back
the
and
idea
set that.
there is to keep that traffic
Away from,
from going up through the houses to
Right,
get there.
which is a
Because
great
that's a
idea.
B3 lot down on Tate's Creek as well.
Well, you walk up here, Corey.
Any more?
Chair, this is off the topic of the sidewalk, but we have been speaking with the applicant, and right now, we have an agreement in principle on an agreement with Richmond Utilities that's being drafted currently. So I would ask that anything that is approved tonight, if it is approved tonight, it be contingent upon the agreement with Richmond Utilities being executed, if that makes sense.
Okay, along that same line, would that affect whatever they want to put in it, regardless if it's a sidewalk or a path or anything?
It would not affect the sidewalk, no, sir.
He wouldn't?
No, sir.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat approval for Parkview Heights with sidewalks, both on Tates Creek and Goggins, and that it's contingent upon the Richmond Utilities Agreement.
Can we put in? Do they want to do
The
that?
question too, I may amend that too, is that should there be a connection from the subdivision over to the sidewalk,
To the light.
to the light? That'll get people to go that way,
So you're wanting both, the sidewalks and the little path?
from the subdivision to the sidewalk.
Oh,
That way-
okay.
That way if kids go on it or somebody else, they don't have to walk all the way around. They just have a little connection and they can just go right over to the intersection.
Right, keeps
So
them
they won't
off
be
that
walking.
sidewalk so
Right.
much,
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially little kids.
yeah. I think that'd
that
be
makes
nice.
common sense, I would think.
Right. And if they live way over here, they just go up this way rather than, so I think that's,
With a contingent at the angle there where the crossings.
I second that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a second.
I think she did.
You have a question for us?
Certainly, it's in your purview to, the question, I believe, was about this connection.
What's the question?
No, we were amending his motion to
To
add
add
that
that to it,
connection.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that way they come right out of the subdivision, go right over to where that is at. People walk out there, they can go right over to the park, et cetera. I mean, it just makes good sense. I mean,
And you have the sidewalk for the
you're
future.
building not a country subdivision anymore, you're building a city subdivision. You gotta ask for different things. You gotta look for different things.
Let me ask one thing. That's lot 11, where they're talking about putting that, is that a buildable lot?
Yeah, yes.
Is there, so how,
That's a buildable lot.
There's an easement for the gas, but you are allowed to put concrete over an easement.
Cool.
yeah, you
so
can't,
do that
can't do that.
Great.
But
in that spot, all right?
Okay. So we have a motion.
You got a second?
We did.
Okay.
Ask one question. When you said the sidewalk, you're talking about those lots on Tate's Creek, just the lots on Tate's Creek on the cross there, on the front of it, so you want the sidewalk in the front and the back. So when we build the houses, then we're able to put that in as we build those houses. We don't have to do that before, because it'll get destroyed, you know what I'm saying, just as they do the COs on the house, they make sure that sidewalk is in. I'm asking that to fill up the deal.
Well, I think that's a procedural thing, and I think that's what he's gonna have to work that out. We have a motion now on the floor for doing the sidewalks and for doing an exit off the subdivision, et cetera, and utilities agreement.
Yeah, once you get through that, I can answer it.
Yeah, here, take it.
Okay, so that I'm clear, the motion is to approve it, but contingent upon the Richmond Utilities being
And
executed,
sidewalks for Tates Creek
and the
Goggins as
sidewalks
per the
along
comprehensive plan.
the entire subdivision, everything that fronts, well, not fronts, but everything that on Tates Creek and Goggins.
You know, it's
Okay.
Can I ask the question?
Yeah, you said, I need to know, and Goggins, or
Yeah.
just
That's
Tates
what it
Creek?
said, yeah.
Can,
Of course,
can I ask the question on that? Now, that on Goggins,
I think,
that on Goggins, I mean, how far up Goggins is that?
I think what, I'll let the attorney correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a motion, and did we have a second on that motion?
Yes.
Okay, so then we need to take that motion and vote on that motion. And that motion right now, if I'm clear, is to approve the preliminary plat contingent upon the utilities agreement or completion of the utility agreement, also with the addition of sidewalk on Tage Creek and Goggins, and then with that addition from the development to the intersection of Tage Creek and
That's right.
Goggins.
Exactly.
So there's a first and a second, so vote
Okay.
on that, and if that's voted down, then we'll have more discussion on it.
Okay.
I'm not trying to cut you off, I'm just saying.
No,
we're-
but do I
Okay.
can I have a question before we vote on it?
Sure.
Now, that on Goggins, you talking about going up Goggins right there? Beside the development, where they developing it?
Heading toward Jacks Creek.
I just don't see that right there, going up through there on
Well,
that side of
suppose they
Goggins.
start building up in through there. And you go further up, there is sidewalk.
Here is.
We can go on and vote. We'll settle
We
it.
got to vote, so.
Okay. Commissioner Shu,
No,
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Estelle.
No.
The motion carries.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Sorry, I've got one thing for clarification. Were they, for you all, there's a contingency on it? We have, by law, we've got 30 days for you to meet the contingencies, and if you can't do that within 30 days, then it'll void the preliminary and you'll have to come back to the planning commission. Because if not, then it becomes final automatically.
Thinking if you go up on this thing, that's going to be.
Okay, next,
Here, and then you're going to have.
on the agenda's directors,
Sidewalk, yeah.
Yeah.
director's report.
It just costs them a fortune. Oh, my God. They need the sidewalks.
Uh,
You can't get out of sidewalk. You got to.
I don't really have much of a report tonight, anything new. But one thing did come to my mind is I still didn't bring that comprehensive plan like I said I was gonna have here. But we know most of that, I think, off the top of our head.
It was the ordinances, wasn't it?
I'm sorry?
The ordinances, you were going to start bringing some of them.
Gonna do that too, yeah. Most of that, we know, we're redoing that stuff as well, as you all know. Appreciate the discussion and everything tonight, and one thing, I will discuss with the city manager, and I think, the citizen back here, if they're still back there, made a good point, and I think I've kind of brought it up before. But sidewalk on both sides of that, the park side of that as well, I think is important. And I do think that that's something that will happen as far as part of that project. It only makes sense you'd be able to come down and.
So basically, even with the park, you'd have one on the park side, you'd have one going up Goggins and one going up Takes Creek.
I think so, yeah.
I think it
If I'm
ought to
following
be.
you right, yeah.
That's why I look at it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's all I have.
Because that's going to be a big crowd.
You already got the option of going both ways.
What about the historic? I know from the architectural board, there's a thing about expansion of the historic area.
So what has occurred on that, and thank you for bringing that up, what's occurred on that, the Board of Architectural Review had discussion regarding trying to, their desire to expand the historical district, what we call the H1, which encompasses, I believe, 4 different historic districts that were established at different times. And that's been in existence now, I believe, probably 20 years or so now. And they have a desire to extend it on down Lexington Road, or Main Street, basically, on out that way, and a few other spots. And so the way the ordinance is written, that essentially it's treated essentially as a land or map amendment. So basically like a zone change. So that will come here actually for the initial public meeting. So during the Board of Architectural Review, right?
There will be an initial public meeting with the Board of Architectural Review, and then it will come here for a
Why
public
would
meeting
it,
as
why
well.
would it come
Will
here?
it be 2? I thought it came here first.
Why would it come here?
Board of Architectural Review is actually a subunit of the Planning and Zoning Board. So as far as,
I thought the commission approved it, and it was like a subcommittee, and the subcommittee then would report back to the commission. in order for us to look at it, we have to start, we're gonna have to have a workshop and everything. Because we're gonna have to go over the whole historic area and the restrictions on it and that kind of thing. So we can't just have it brought here and then we decide to vote on it.
Well, Dr. Miller, very much it'll be in the same manner as when you all have a hearing and it goes to the Board of Commissioners. Here, there's just going to be actually 2 layers, where they have a public hearing, and yes, it would come to you where they have made a recommendation. You would not have to follow their recommendation, and you can have your own hearing, but it would work its way up the chain. That's the way our ordinance currently.
Yeah, but I wouldn't know whether to approve it or not to approve it, because I haven't sat down with them and done historic area and seen whether I would like that or not like that, or,
Well, I think that's part of the, I'm sorry to cut you off.
but we'll have to have some kind of workshop.
That'll be part of it, so I would recommend that work session like you're talking about. I think that makes sense. But it also will be much like our transportation corridor district, as far as conceptually, it's an overlay district is what they're known as. So what you're doing is carving out a section of the community and saying, okay, this section of the community has different restrictions than another section. That's why it's treated like a zone change essentially. So if it starts there, we'll have a public meeting. We have to send out mailers and notices to all the property owners. They'll have an opportunity to speak and discuss it, and then they'll vote and send it to the planning commission. You then will then have your opportunity to review it, ask questions. The public will be here.
Yes.
I feel fairly confident. I think it encompasses 144 additional properties.
I think when you send them letters, I think you ought to send them the restrictions and the requirements for the historic area.
We are.
Yeah, and that's what
I
we did
mean,
with the.
From
Yeah,
the
we
thing,
are.
because there will be some restrictions that you can't change the outside, you can't change
Yeah.
the colors, you can't change a lot of things.
They're going to get the
Some
letter.
people that may not wish to be in the historic area, and there's some people that will.
That's right. And that's what we did with the transportation corridor as well. We sent the new regulations with it, and we will do that. That's a good point. So it will create, it will take up some time, and it'll basically, I'm sure there'll be a whole meeting or 2 meetings or 3 meetings about it, because it will impact existing property owners. So, you may have somebody that lives in a house, historic or not, that if they fall within this expansion in this H1, if they want to paint their house, change the color of it anyway, they will have to come and get approval. If they want to build a deck, if they want to do things that outside and change the facade, if they want to go from a shingle roof to a metal roof and things like that, they will have to go before the Board of Adjustment.
I'm
So,
gonna ask this question.
I'm sorry, architectural review.
It come up once before when we had this, and a gentleman came, it's been years ago, and he was upset to the fact that his house was historical, the other was historical, but they wasn't doing any upkeep on it at all. Where'd you run into something like that?
So is the question that it's in the historical district
in
and
the
it's not
historical
being
district.
maintained?
He was keeping, his was maintained, and the other ones wasn't being maintained.
Yeah, well, what you run into there really is a lot like when anybody doesn't maintain their house. We try to use the nuisance ordinance and.
But I mean,
and
it's not that far, where it's just run down, but it's just not being maintained.
It's hard to maintain a lot of those homes that'll be in a historic district too.
To my
You can't do
knowledge,
anything about somebody who doesn't want to maintain their property.
yeah, to my knowledge, that's handled separate of the Board of Architectural Review. The Board of Architectural Review doesn't have
Well,
enforcement
I mean,
power on maintenance, as far as maintaining.
I think that would be all part of it, though.
Made a motion one time that we
Yeah,
fine them.
well, that,
They went away like a lead balloon.
Because you could have some that don't want to be involved in it. And I think that's what this guy done. He decided, he said, what's use to me doing it, and, there's
Yeah.
nothing been,
So we would go for it.
been done with. I just asked a question on that.
yeah, the intent of it is to try to maintain the characteristics of the property. So if they're historic, then they would be maintained as historic. So if you bought it and you wanted to change something on it, it would kind of keep the characteristics of the area. So, I'm sorry,
Quick question, is Eastern exempt from?
Eastern?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Eastern's
Is
exempt
there
from,
any way to prevent that from happening? Why? That's crazy.
No, they're not exempt. They can't buy an historic area and tear it down.
Well,
They can't do that.
within the city's historic area, they can't, if it's on a federal historical list, they cannot.
It's on the federal.
So,
Yeah, because if you tear it down and it's in that, you lose all your grants.
yes, you could lose federal funding, but that is only if it's on a federal.
It's on federal level.
So you have to be real careful about that. The question I have is, suppose I've got a home, whatever, Sunset or whatever, and you're gonna extend it out there. And my home is really not historic.
Right.
My home's a 3-bedroom bungalow, et cetera, like that. Are you gonna put that in the historic area?
if the boundaries they propose and agree on, say incorporated your property, then the answer would be yes.
Well, why?
Why have boundaries?
That's a good question.
Why not make it per home instead of
Yeah.
make it a big boundary? Because some homes aren't historic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's just
It's
a
a good
misnomer.
discussion.
But certainly all of these issues
lot
can
of
be
those-
brought up
That's
to
gonna
address.
be,
dogs.
that's why we gotta have a workshop, because that's gonna
dogs.
be a sticky kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and we will have, and Mr. Stone's already done actually extensive research, so we have all the properties and when they were built and the uses and all that stuff and all the information together, so you'll actually know, you'll have a lot of information that'll tell you that this house was built in 1980. This house was built in 1922.
But you can't skip areas.
I think there's a way to run it. I would like to be careful, because the idea now is it's contiguous, that you don't have kind of in same concept as spot zoning.
zone.
We don't have a bunch of spots that, okay, this is historical, this is not. Now, if you have a large property that's in a historic property that's maybe out by itself, that
Like
would be a
Henry
little bit
Clay.
different. Yeah, versus if we went from 104 Sunset and skipped 105 and 106 and then went 107's in and then 108's out, you see what I mean? We would just have it would be difficult to do that. But those are all good questions, and
You could get that.
we can hatch it all out. It'll be exciting.
I hope to be out of
Is
town.
there-
Y'all have fun.
Is there any other business?
Well, I make a motion, we adjourn then.
Get adjournment?
All right, motion.
Okay. Commissioner Shu?
Yes.
Commissioner Miles? Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller? Commissioner Perkins? Commissioner Estelle?
Yes.
We are adjourned.